Rover 8 1919–25. The Rover 8 was a small single-cylinder 8-horsepower 1,327cc car made by the British Rover Car Company. It was Rover's first production car. It was remarkable for being supported by a backbone chassis rather than a conventional ladder frame. The first model was manufactured from 1904 to 1912. A Daimler Knight sleeve valve engine option was available in 1911 and 1912. Following World War I, a new 998cc, later 1134cc, twin-cylinder 8-horsepower light car was offered from 1919 to 1925. It was in its turn superseded in 1924 by a 4-cylinder 1074cc Rover 9. The car, designed by Edmund Woodward Lewis, 1870 to 1941, who had joined Rover from Daimler, had an unusual structure. Instead of the conventional chassis, the car had a backbone structure, formed by the engine crankcase, the gearbox housing, a rigid tubular propeller shaft housing, and the rear axle housing, the whole described as having a box girder section. The backbone frame, without bump compliance at the rear apart from the tires, was suspended from the front axle at just one point by a pivoted transverse leaf spring which made no contribution to transverse rigidity, and thus the whole remaining car rested on just 3 points, similar to the design of old, four-wheeled farm tractors. The body, through its own subframe, was mounted on the rear axle using semi-elliptic springs. The single-cylinder engine displaced 1,327cc with a bore of 4.5 in, 110 mm, and stroke of 5 in, 130 mm. Its inlet and exhaust valves were both mechanically operated. It had an unusual pedal control that changed over the valve operating cams to provide extra engine braking. When it was wished to slow the engine, a driver's foot lever moved the cams first to reduce valve lift and then second, on further pressure. The valves are closed completely and the engine is effectively an air compressor slowing the rear wheels. At the engine's normal speed of 900 revolutions per minute it produced 8 horsepower, 6 kilowatts, the same number as its rack tax rating. If desired, the engine could be accelerated up to 1,500 revolutions per minute by judicious adjustment of both the throttle and the ignition timing. Above the combustion chamber, an aluminum inspection plate may be removed to inspect water jacket spaces for blockage or potential blockage. The crankshaft and camshaft were fitted with large ball races. The sparking plug sits just above the inlet valve. Electric current is provided by an accumulator, battery, and a Bass-Michel high-speed tremolo coil and timed with a wide contact. Wires are able to be kept very short. Should there have been any experience of short-circuiting, a switch on the steering wheel center switched off the current without a hand leaving the wheel. A propeller draws water from the base of the radiator, pushing it up through the engine's water jackets to the radiator's top tank, from where it descends to the base again through 12 copper tubes carrying aluminum gills. A pulley on the end of the crankshaft drives a bell to a fan drawing air through the radiator. The metal-to-metal type clutch runs in oil. It has an engine-driven bell-shaped clutch forced by a coil spring on the output shaft to engage with a floating cast iron disc which transmits power to the 3-speed gearbox. The speeds provided by the gearbox are: first, 8 miles per hour, 13 kilometers per hour. Second, 16 miles per hour, 26 kilometers per hour. Third or top gear, 24 miles per hour, 39 kilometers per hour. Reverse, 8 miles per hour, 13 kilometers per hour. Top gear is a direct drive-through from the clutch to the rear bevel on the differential within the back axle's aluminum casting. Economical production is provided by making the gearbox from just 3 sizes of gear wheel. The change speed lever is at the bottom of the steering wheel, operated through a concentric tube around the steering column. The front axle is made from steel tube. Ball cup swivel pins are mounted at each end with a slide set given the wheel axles. A cross rod joins the steering levers on each wheel. The cross rod is linked to the foot of the steering column by double cable which rotates around the steering column. A spring is incorporated in the cable so that only one of the cables is tight. The small diameter of the steering spindle was claimed to obviate road shock. There are compression rods from the gearbox casing to stay each end of the front axle and minimize deflection by road shock. The rear axles are mounted on ball bearings and encased with the differential in one aluminum casting. The bolt which fastens the long semi-elliptical springs which support the back of the body are fastened to the same casing. The differential casing has an inspection cover as does the gearbox and clutch. The engine is lubricated by the splash system. During regular maintenance, the clutch case, the gearbox case and the rear axles are fed with lubricant through the inspection covers. The brakes on the back wheels are all wrought iron using malleable iron drums. They are controlled by foot lever operating through compensating wires. The two passengers are provided with bucket-type seats, the driver's shallower and less comfortable than the passengers. The body's two sides are formed by a cast aluminum skeleton supported by ash side members. The two sides are braced against each other by the seats in front and a cast aluminum stay at the back. There are more ash cross members at the base. Rover claims an easily made and handsome body can be fitted to this frame. The rear springs are exceptionally long.